Horror has always been one of the most popular genres in countless media thanks to its versatility. We humans panic in real situations, but we love to feel fear in fictional products. Fear makes us feel alive, especially when we believe it's real. Hey guys, welcome back to the Replay Media. Today we'll be exploring the found footage genre, those movies that in their early days many people believed were real videos, or rather the creators tried to make them so. There is, for example, the case of Cannibal Holocaust, a true pioneer of found footage horror films that even went to court at the time. We love horror films in all their aspects, but there is something special about found footage films. We feel like the last witness of those who dared to film the forbidden. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the most scariest found footage horror movies. Europa Report, 2013, directed by Sebastian Cordero. Beyond the fact that they are terrifying, in most horror movies there is an escape route for the protagonist, no matter that sometimes they don't make it out alive. At least it gives hope to the audience. But what happens when the only way out is an infinite and empty space? That's why space horror is on another level. As one of its best representatives, Europa Report revolves around a group of international astronauts who are sent on a private mission to Jupiter's fourth moon to investigate the possible existence of alien life in the solar system. Soon, what begins as a documentation that will change the course of humanity ends in a nightmare for those involved. From the ship's point of view to the astronauts' ground explorations, the director Sebastian Cordero weaves a thread of tension into this sci-fi thriller that makes it clear that some things are better left as they are. Just because there's intelligent life out there doesn't mean it wants to be found. The Visit, 2015. Directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Imagine this scenario. You're a kid again, it's the weekend, and your parents send you to your grandparents' house. Sounds like the perfect plan. And that's why it pains me to ruin it with this movie. Directed by the renowned M. Night Shyamalan, The Visit introduces us to two siblings who are sent by their mother to their grandparents' remote Pennsylvania farm to get to know each other. As the days go by, especially the nights, the siblings discover that their grandparents are keeping terrible secrets that could mean they will never return home. The use of found footage wouldn't seem to suit the man responsible for the Unbreakable saga, but like the objective shots of his previous titles, he uses the camera to hide behind door frames and let reality take its course. With a style similar to the famous video game Outlast, along with some children's own footage, The Visit is an unsettling experience that does not focus on extreme terror, but on the real thing, and that is much worse. Afflicted, 2013, directed by Derek Lee and Cliff Prowse. Sometimes, the best horror stories start with laughs. Derek and Cliff are two friends who set out to travel around the world, carrying a camera to upload videos of their experiences to the internet. That is Derek's last wish, as he has an arteriovenous malformation in his brain that could cause his death at any moment. After a crazy night in Europe, Derek's metabolism begins to change, rejecting all food while developing superhuman strength and agility. Well, there is one thing he likes to eat: human blood. Afflicted is a brilliant twist on the often forgotten and underrated vampire genre in the found footage films. At first, it's as fun as you'd expect it to be, because if your best friend acquires vampiric powers, that would be pretty awesome. However, when the bloodlust increases, your friend isn't so friendly anymore. Besides, the fact that the directors are the protagonists helps the immersion in the story. They even use their real names for the characters. Coincidence? I hope so. Creep, 2014, directed by Patrick Bryce. There are some weird people out there. I mean, there's that concept of weird, which is more about embracing your differences and that it's okay not to fit in everywhere. That's nice. But then there's the other kind of weird, that person with unusual behaviors who could be a risk to society, a creep. This film introduces us to Aaron, an enthusiastic cameraman who finds a lucrative offer on Craigslist. His new job is to film a man named Joseph all day long so that his future son can meet him since he suffers from a terminal illness. But what seems like a job with noble purposes will become more complicated as the day progresses, as Joseph becomes increasingly strange and dangerous. With only 2 characters, a script with exquisite dialogue, and a cabin in the middle of nowhere, Creep can give you the creeps with very little. That's the special charm that found footage films have. The lower the budget, the more creative they are. The entire film is a cat and mouse game between the two, with the peculiarity that the characters develop a particular sentimental connection. It's almost a story of friendship, only a toxic and perverse one that leads to one of the most shocking endings of this genre. Sinister, 2012, directed by Scott Derrickson. The case of Sinister is quite special, as it's not a found footage film, but a traditional horror film about found footage. It doesn't sound like there's much difference, but when you see the movie, you'll understand. Sinister tells the story of Ellison, a well-known author of crime novels based on true events, who discovers a box of strange Super 8 homemade movies in his new house. After analyzing them, he concludes that they could reveal the circumstances of the death of the previous owners of the house, although something truly sinister lurks in the footage. With this film, Derrickson established himself as a horror director, and not for less, because with just a few scenes, he can leave you as cold as the protagonist watching the tapes. It is arguably the most literal found footage film, as its protagonist finds hidden footage, and is horrified to see the content. With Ethan Hawke at the helm and terrifying tapes recorded by the people you'd least expect, Sinister is an experience that will give you a lot to think about, especially at bedtime. Wreck, 2007, directed by Jaume Belagado and Paco Plaza. With a name that directly evokes its format, the Wreck franchise is one of the most successful in the found footage genre, with several sequels, comics, novels, and an American remake. Still, there's nothing like the original. Set in Spain, Wreck revolves around Angela, a young reporter for a local television station who every night shoots a story about a different group. One night, she follows a group of firefighters who go to rescue an old woman who is trapped in her apartment, although there are calls that are best not to answer. At first glance, Wreck looks like a supernatural horror film, but it's more real than we think. With some inspiration from the zombie genre, the plot focuses on an epidemic of savage cannibalism in which the reporter is trapped. Not only is it an overwhelming experience, but the narrative leaves loose ends at will for us to solve the mystery. Just beware of your neighbor's bites. VHS, 2012, directed by Adam Wingard, David Bruckner, Ty West, Glenn McQuaid, Joe Swanberg, and Radio Silence. Anthology films have a special charm, as they are several films inside one, with some kind of element that connects them all. It's one of the most fascinating formats, so combining it with found footage was an idea destined for success. VHS begins with a group of low-life criminals who are hired to break into an abandoned house and retrieve a videotape. The problem is that they find more than one around a dead body and an old TV, where they see the creepy contents of each one. Thanks to the variety of styles of each director, VHS results in an entertaining story for all tastes. Each one imprints his own stamp and ability to handle found footage. From witches to invisible killers, you are sure to be scared. Noroi, The Curse, 2005, directed by Koji Shiraishi. The cover letter for this film is pretty short. Many people couldn't finish watching it. If that sounds exaggerated to you, I dare you to watch it, and you'll understand why many people fail. Life is more beautiful when you don't have this movie in your mind. Of Japanese origin, this story introduces us to Masafumi Kobayashi, a highly respected supernatural phenomena journalist in the country. However, his last documentary was never shown to the public because it was considered too disturbing for television. That famous and top secret documentary is Noroi, The Curse. With an impressive budget for the proposal and an impeccable dramatic structure, this film is one of Japan's most terrifying, and that's saying a lot, considering they are kings of horror. The use of documentary genre elements gives the feeling that you are watching a real documentary. In that way, the director not only reinforces the story, but also helps the audience understand the background much better. Still, the ending is extremely puzzling, which only enhances the film's aura of mystery that breaks its barrier. The Blair Witch Project, 1999, directed by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. In October 1994, 3 students entered a forest to film a documentary about a witch. The students disappeared. A year later, the tape was found. With this simple premise and an even more modest visual approach, Myrick and Sanchez hooked the viewers. It didn't matter that many despised this brief 80 minutes for not having seen a monster at the end, because therein lies its charm. Given its limited budget, they relied heavily on the actors and the creepy Maryland forest, as well as an excellent marketing strategy for the time. They created a fictitious legend about the Blair Witch that they supplemented with newspaper articles, television reports, and fake interviews. The phenomenon reached such a point that to this day, many people still believe there is some truth behind the story. But who am I to deny it? No matter how much time passes, the Blair Witch Project will always be the most iconic found footage film, and the one to which we owe the explosion of this incredible genre. As Above, So Below, 2014. Directed by John Eric Dowdle. We end the list with a film that was unfairly criticized at the time, but eventually became a cult classic for lovers of found footage. Under the miles and miles of tortuous catacombs beneath the streets of Paris, a group of explorers venture among the thousands of bones of the labyrinth in search of the Philosopher's Stone, although the city of the dead hides something much more sinister. The wonderful thing about this film is that it does not seek to scare you and nothing more, but explores different historical and religious themes that build a rich background, something quite rare for this genre. The catacombs are the perfect place to set a horror film, and director John Eric Dowdle makes the most of them, conveying an undeniable sense of claustrophobia and desperation, especially when one of the characters get into trouble and face their own demons. With tons of references to classic literature, a Lara Croft-like protagonist, and one of the most incredible plot twists in horror cinema, As Above, So Below stands as one of the best modern exponents of found footage. And so, we reached the end of this incredible top 10 in which some gems like Cloverfield, Paranormal Activity, Troll Hunter, and many more were left out. That's the magic of found footage. There are always new proposals that surprise us and, best of all, scare us. So grab your camera and go film in that abandoned house in your neighborhood. Don't worry, we'll tell your story for you.